Hello, Copper players. For today's episode, we have another focus on Dimir Terror this time, and I guess maybe we should call this kind of episode something like the story of the Pauper deck's name. So the story of Dimir Terror. I guess it sounds fine. So, Dimir Terror has been in Pauper since the print of Gangler in 2015, and the deck was kind of good initially, and then we have a variegated story of the deck, so it became good, bad, a lot of high and low presence in events, and it also changed a reasonable amount of time, more regarding on the metagame and the cards that it played. Initially, the deck was more focused on a slower metagame because in 2016 Pauper was much slower compared to right now. So usually in Pauper at that time the games ended by turn 5, 6 or 7. Right now Pauper is a turn 4 format where decks like Burn, Doggles, even Dimir Terror can kill you by turn 4. And at that time, Dimir Delver was probably the best deck, the best deck to face Affinity, thanks to the presence of Gurmagangler and Metal Note and Dust Cover to speed up your Gurmagangler. Another important part of that deck at that time was Delver of Secrets that allowed you to just fly and go over the creatures of your opponent. So in this case, Affinity didn't have any flying creature, and Delver was good to deal the early game damage and then finish them with Gurmagangler or whatever thing. So as you can see, at the time, accumulated knowledge with Tuskhour was the main source of card advantage, and there weren't any snuff out or dispel or foil in most deck lists, and deprive, counter spells, and sometimes mana leak or prohibit were the main counter spells of the deck. Instead of cards like Stone, Tremor's Edict, and Snuff Out, Ghastly Demise was the premier removal spell for Dimir Angler, alongside cards like Diabolic Edict or Toolblade. Just so you know, Mono Black Devotion was more played and was widely played in Pauper at that time, alongside decks like Boros Kuldota, Boros Metalcraft. So Doomblade wasn't really great when you were expecting to face a lot of Emergent Flaspedial or Citroen Rats. For that reason, cards like Stormbound Geist was nothing new in the main deck of this deck, because it was also good against fairies, and both fairies and Mono Black were good matchup for the Dimir Delver Angler deck. So after some times, before the print of Ultimate Masters in 2018, yeah, in 2018, a newer version of Dimir Delver starting seeing play, because someone thought of adding more legacy-like cards like Deeds and Gash over accumulated knowledge and Malik, in example, and that version of Dimir Delver got the name Dimir One Drop, and with Dimir One Drop, historic card like Gash got expanded from Pauper, because the deck is fast easily became a tier 0 archetype, and was very taught to interact with it. And the rise of Dimir One Drop was the reason why Affinity starting seeing less and less play in Pauper, because before Dimir One Drop, Affinity was one of the most played deck, but after that, the combo of Days, Fast Groomer Angler, and also the Lord of Secrets easily killed Affinity, because Affinity didn't really had any other way to interact with this deck by packing a lot of effects like Elemental Blast and Hydro Blast. Cast Down wasn't legal yet, and Days was also really tough to interact with, because Affinity has always been a deck that tries to tap out every single turn to play its Mana Rocks, Prophetic Praise, Chromatic Star, Toukest, etc. Also, Affinity had a very lower amount of card advantage, only Toukest, sometimes Secret Wellspring, and Peruse Research, or Wishing Well. And also the Affinity mana base was really awful at that time, because you were forced to play cards like Springleaf Drum, the Navigator's Compass alongside the Prophetic Prism, or either or Springleaf Drum or Navigator's Compass, because there were lots of versions of Affinity that wasn't playing Flare Ask or Frogmite, and instead was playing Navigator's Compass, because Drum is good only if you play cards such as Frogmite and other creatures that came on the battlefield in early turns. And after that, Gash, Days, and GTX and Probe got the X-Band, because as you can see, this list isn't running anymore to Scour or Mental Note, so the deck was really fast even without Mental Note and Scour, because it was packing a lot of 0 mana or 1 mana interaction. So for that reason, we're able to land a Grumar Gangler by turn 3 or turn 4. Well, the deck was tier 0, as I already said, and was also very difficult for other tier 1 archetypes to fight against it. I think that at that time I had a very favorable matchup against it by playing Flicker Tron, but was still really tough. And also Bear's Bully had a really favorable matchup against it, but as you can see, the deck was playing 3 copies of Echoing Decay, and the main reason for that is that duplicating hymns wasn't already legal in the format. It got printed in Korea, so I guess by 2020 maybe. After that, they printed Mystic Sanctuary. So with Mystic Sanctuary, the deck changed nothing much. It just swooped 2 island for 2 copies of Mystic Sanctuary, and instead of 3 Gash, was playing 3 copies of Tragic Lesson that helped you loop the card advantage in a similar way as the Monarch do. So I draw 1 extra card each turn, I bounce back my Mystic Sentry, I play again Sentry and put Tragic Lesson on the top of my deck. Tragic Lesson alongside Mystic Sentry was really cool, but blue decks were too much good with Mystic Sentry, so Mystic Sentry got the X-Band again, and pretty hilarious that this deck was able to keep being alive, thanks to Mystic Sentry, and also because no one at that time was playing Dimir Fairies. So after the ban of Mystic Sentry, people have seen that cards like Torn of the Black Rose and Snuff Out were alongside Grumar Gangler and Urfor Bolas were playing really well. So instead of Mystic Sentry, they started playing Torn of the Black Rose and Ninja of the Powers as sources of card advantage, of course, alongside Spellstutter Sprite. But the deck was still kind of legal and played, but in a more control-ish version, probably. So, in example, with the print of the modern age, they tried cutting Igor Bolas, tried to still play the tempo style aggressive role, but the didn't try it, snuff out in example, but they started playing deep analysis, Dawn of the Black Rose, of course, and other ramos like Cast Down and Generous Edict. And also people tried a more aggressive version of Dimir Delver a more control-ish version of Dimir Delver by getting Delver of Secrets and adding 4 copies of Throne of Black Rose. So the deck became a sort of control deck with Gurmag Angler as Jam Blocker or Win Condition, with Mystical Teachings, Snuff Out, Full Set, and other removal spells, Gift of the Kemi, Agony Warp, Suffocating Fumes, etc. So right now the deck is of course more aggressive compared to the versions with Thorn of the Black Rose, and apparently is also better compared to the version with Delver of Secrets, since they aren't playing anymore Delver of Secrets and they prefer to play only 8 copies of Gurmag Angler as win condition. And I like to say that cutting Delver of Secrets is the right choice, because you can now focus all your early games and your resources to dig your deck, find your 5/5 creatures, and cast your Toothscour and Brainstorms. So you dig your deck, you draw more cards, you fill your graveyard, and you can start deploying your terrors and anglers by turn 3 and so on. An important a really relevant innovation in this deck, I think, that is the mana base, since the decks is mostly mono blue, but splashing blue or snuff out, so it doesn't really require Ash Barons and fetch land and a basic swamp to play, since the main black removal, the main black interactive spell is snuff out. You just need a tapped land, so you have 8 tapped dual land, 9 island or 10 island if you want to play more, and that's also important that is playing only 17 or 18 lands. The previous version were playing at least 20 lands or 19. No, the Gash version was also playing 17 lands, but as you can see, 17 lands seems to be enough even to cast Generous Edict in a late game, and you can put more pressure on the battlefield with 8 creatures when you don't play Delver of Secrets, and that's very surprising because you can play a Tolarian Terror or a Gurmag Angler by turn 5, by turn 3, and then another 1 or 2 by turn 4, and another 1 by turn 5, etc. And you also can run very good ways to interact with your opponent removal spells, since the metagame is faster compared to 2015 or 2016. You don't really want to play too many 2-mana counter spells. The first versions of this deck also tried playing foil, and foil was kind of good, but not as much as spell pierce, so foil was more of late game counter spells that allowed you to play your creatures in mid game, leaving you open by 2 mana to cast both counter spell and foil, because you don't want to pitch your islands in early game, because you want to land at least 3 or 4 land drops in the early game. Instead of accumulating knowledge, the deck now is playing deep analysis, and some lists are trying to play Thorn of the Black Rose as a way to break the mirror match, and cards like Proteins or Ponder seems to not see in playing anymore, but consider alongside Mental Note and Scour are also played because are the only way to get card advantage and card selection from Brainstorm. The deck is now even more efficient compared to the old days. Of course, it doesn't have a Gash or something similar. Thankfully, it doesn't have those cards because Gash was too much for the deck at that time. So just imagine Gash in this deck. Wow, I prefer to not play in a metagame where you can play both Tyrant Terror and Gash in the same deck. You can play Ogre of Bolas as a way to counter opponents' Channel Circuit, but you can also play Unexpected Tanks to counter Burn, in example, because Burn is tier 1 right now. And you can also try to play cards like Crow from the Cellar or the other one spell that exile one card in your opponent graveyard and create one zombie token. I don't remember the name, but that card is also pretty good in the mirror match because it allows you to exile something like a deep analysis and counter one Shiner's Edict. Crow Seller, in example, is a way to counter, to generate card advantage, and by putting one counter +1/+1 counter or your Gurmagangler, you have a bigger creature compared to your opponent, so you can win in a combat step is in a easier way, of course. Well, the Pauper metagame changed a lot, but this deck is still legal and became better, so I think is also cool of the deck became faster and is now running more answers to Faster's deck and is trying to play a more aggressive deck, a more aggressive role compared to the previous metas, where countering card advantage spell with the private counter spell was more relevant compared to right now, where you prefer to counter only your opponent answers to your threats. So an example, the matchup against Affinity is now subverted and now seems to be really bad for Dimir Terror if Terror isn't fast enough, because Affinity can run a lot of card advantage and doesn't try to win before Dimir Terror. So it can also run Pyroblast to kill the 5/5 Tolarian Terror, and also Shiner's Edict or Cast Down to kill Gurmagangler. And of course, there are cards like Gearseeker Serpent and Canker Artificer to stop your race. So now the deck just tried to play a more tempo style gameplay against one deck that used to be a very favorable matchup and now is more fair, so maybe sort of 50-50 matchup. The deck seems to not be played too much in leagues right now because the leagues are filled with Burn. So probably if you want to play it on Magical Line, at least in leagues, you need to play more than one singleton copy of Unexpected Fangs in the main deck. And Unexpected Fangs is not just a metagame choice in the main deck, I mean, because in most matchups you cast Unexpected Fangs, so you are able then to cast more copies of Deep Analysis from your graveyard or more copies of Snuff Out, because having both Deep Analysis and Snuff Out is really taxating on your life count. Anyway, the deck seems to be able to win against a lot of different decks. I will not say that it has a lot of free win or auto lose. In my opinion, is able to win against everything and also lose against everything. The deck seems to be better if you know how to play it, and of course it is also bad if you don't know how to play it. So it's really satisfying to play it if you like this kind of archetype. We can say that it enriched the Pauper metagame having it. So for now, I think we talked plenty enough, and see you later next week for another episode of the Pauper News or other video dropped from my Twitch account, since I usually stream on Monday and Thursday. Bye!